Just 8 p.m.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay,
No problem.
let's start. Hello, everyone. It's Alamgir Hossain, MEL coordinator, app associate, and admin of Digital MEL Hub. It's my great pleasure that all the amazing M&E professionals from national and international level have joined today. Thanks, everyone, to keep with us. Digital MEL Hub is a virtual open learning platform for solely M&E professionals with the vision of connecting all the M&E professionals worldwide under one umbrella and build a strong, sustainable network to increase professional knowledge so that we can share our knowledge, experience, document, and opinion. Feel free to ask any your query here related to M&E. I am excited that more than 1,700 registered members from our 110 countries are already connected here till today. For the objective, we already have taken 4 key initiatives. Created Digital MEL Hub, LinkedIn, Facebook, and WhatsApp group for connecting global M&E professionals. Organize monthly basis webinar to boost up skill. MEL document sharing through WhatsApp, Google Drive, and YouTube channel. Archiving all M&E document at Google Drive. So keep connect with us at Digital MEL Hub via Facebook group, LinkedIn group, WhatsApp group, and YouTube channel. We believe connection is most important for career growth. As my plan 2022, today we are going to organize 10th webinar on project evaluation, and this is the last webinar for this year. It's a great day for us because we have Mr. Tawfiq Aziz as a speaker today. Honorable M&E professional. Now the moment start our today's 10th webinar on project evaluation with our resource speaker, Mr. A.K.M. Tawfiq Aziz. Currently, he is working as senior advisor for M&E and research at Tango International, USA. He has vast knowledge on evaluation. Already all of you know about him through recent my video content advertisement and other communication channel. You are glad to know, and I am happy that Digital MEL Hub is working together with Circle Associate Limited from next year as a e-learning platform. You know, Circle as a Associate Limited is a platform for the monitoring, evaluation, learning, and knowledge management professional. It is registered under the joint stock company. Hope everybody will learn more by this intricate work from the next year. Before we start, I would like to share some housekeeping rule for everyone. Your microphone is muted and you will get open discussion or feedback at the end of the session. The webinar is being recorded and you will get similar recording and PPT after the webinar. So keep question and suggestion at your mind. I'm requesting to Tawfiq Bhai to start today's session. Over to you, Tawfiq Bhai. Please start your session.
Thanks, Alamgir Bhai. As you already, Alamgir Bhai introduced me. So thanks everybody for joining this webinar, and let's get started. Let me share my screen.
Okay, screen is available.
Okay, thank you. Project evaluation. It's like a big topics, but my presentation I have prepared, keeping in mind that who are the audience of this presentation. So this presentation is based on my practical experience in different countries around the world. So you'll not see in this presentation something like a very good like manual or guideline or something like that. I'll just share with you some of the practical experience in evaluation that actually the MEL people around the world, they need to know. So before going to start the presentation, actually what the MEL people need in evaluation. So my understanding that a MEL person or MEL manager, MEL coordinator doesn't need like to be an evaluator, but they need to know actually what's the components and actually what's are looking in the evaluation, so that they can understand the evaluation results, they can prepare themselves, and they can use the findings from the evaluation for their better M&E system and also better project management decisions. So my presentation would be is 17 slides. So it will not take more than 45 minutes. Then we'll have some times to discuss. So now let's see like how what actually we will cover in this presentation. So I will try to give you some information on the evaluation concepts. Then what are the evaluations types, and then I will talk a little bit on evaluation methodology, and then actually what are the steps that you need to follow for an effective evaluation. And most important thing I would see here, the second last bullet, use of evaluation findings. So in our development world, actually there is a lot of lackings in this place. Use of evaluation findings. How you can use these evaluation findings for program management decisions. So that I will try to talk with some actual and practical experience, and actually from actual data. And then finally, evaluation lesson learning. Okay. So now let's see. I know everyone in this presentation. I think you know, like, what does evaluation mean? Okay. I do not need to actually tell you the definition or blah blah things, but let's refresh our mind. What does evaluation mean? Okay. The first thing is, as a systematic, impartial. These two words are very important. As a systematic, impartial process of assessing the status of planned activities, outputs, outcomes, and impacts at the beginning, during implementation, and at the end of a project. So here I told you, like, the systematic and impartial, these two things are very important. Okay. If you don't follow the systematic procedure at the very beginning of the project, so then you'll not be able to end up with a good evaluation at the end line or at the midterm. So it should be systematic from the very beginning. Okay, impartial. This impartial things is very important in case of evaluation. Okay, so monitoring data you can collect, MIS data you can collect, the project people they can collect and they can make decisions on there. But an evaluation should be impartial. And how you can make it impartial? So if it is impartial, you need to engage someone who is, it's better to engage someone who is outside of this project and can see the project in a third eye. So that's why here two things is important. When it is evaluation, then it should be systematic at the very beginning, and that should be impartial process. Okay. Evaluation is conducted based on observed evidence using both quantitative and qualitative research methods. Okay. So, say for example, earlier days, back in maybe 90s, people for the baseline, people usually use like the quantitative, only the quantitative part as a baseline evaluation. They say that as a baseline, but they don't count it, did not count it as a evaluation, as an evaluation. So, but nowadays, even for the baseline, people use both method, quantitative and qualitative. So only quantitative cannot give you a good evaluation. You need something from the qualitative. So it should be a mixed method. And the other thing is observed evidence. This is very important. Okay. So nowadays, like during the COVID-19 era, we also did the evaluation. We did the evaluation through like WhatsApp, through Zoom, through WebEx, different online platform. We did the midterm, we did the inline, we did it. But this is my personal opinion. There are a lot of guidelines is right now on the online. You can see that the how to do the online evaluation, how to do the evaluation report remotely. But the important thing is, if it is not observed evidence can be in two ways. One is from your data, and the other one is you can see the project and observe it and make your decision. So in that case, actually this quantitative and qualitative, that should be observed evidence. Okay. It's a process of learning, evidence-based program management decisions and reflection. Okay. So I see many of the project, they need to do a baseline, midterm, and inline evaluation, and they hire a consultant, and then the consultant complete the evaluation and make a nice report, and they submit it to the donor. So then the work is done, right? But no, evaluation is very important. It's a learning process. This learning process started from the beginning of a project, over the period of the project, and at the end of the project. And if you use the evaluation findings for your program management decisions, so that would be a evidence-based program management decisions. Okay. Now, reflection. When an evaluation is done, say for inline evaluation is done, so then that's it. You have a nice report and submit it to the donor and showcasing in your and showcase it. So it's not like that. Reflection means one of the project inline findings can be useful for the future and for the project betterment. Okay, so these are the I think in short. If I say what does mean evaluation? Evaluation is a systematic impartial process, and that starts from the beginning of a project, over the period of the project, and at the end of the project. And it should the findings should be evidence-based, and that should collect from both quantitative and qualitative. And finally, the program management decision should be made from the evaluation, evidence-based evaluation findings. And the findings should be used for future programming or future program management decision in other projects. Okay, so this is a very brief on what does evaluation mean. I know everyone is in this room, you know what does mean it, but I just try to refresh ourselves. So now, what are the types of evaluation? There are many types of evaluations, but here everybody know, and also we know there are three main evaluation for a development project. Usually we do. Now, the first one is baseline evaluation. sometimes it's called pre-project evaluations. Now the middle one is, some people call it in different name, but this is the same thing. Ongoing project evaluation, process evaluation, midterm review, midterm evaluation, summative evaluation, performance evaluation. So this evaluation usually done at the middle of the project, so that the project can understand that yes, what's going on and actually what needs to do and what achieved so far. So now, when I was a M&E professional, then at sometimes they started some donor talking it midterm evaluation. After then, they start calling it, no, it should be midterm review, not midterm evaluation. So sometimes MT, sometimes MTR. Now, many donors start saying this process evaluation. Okay, so basically, whatever the name, ongoing project evaluation, process evaluation, midterm review, midterm evaluation, summative evaluation, performance evaluation, all are actually same. This evaluation usually done during the project period. Now the last one is post-project evaluation or inline evaluation, final evaluation. Somebody call it impact evaluation. So it's actually different donor use the different terminals, but basically after the project is post-project evaluation, inline, final evaluation, or impact evaluation. So some donor they do this this inline evaluation before 1 year ending the project. That's called penultimate year. So as we are saying that the end of the project, but some of the donor they would like to do this inline before 1 year of project end. But basically that is they consider that as their final or inline evaluation. So my next I'm continuing the types of evaluation. So this is a part of like different evaluation I'm talking. So the first one is a baseline. Okay. So now what actually look at and what actually we do in baseline evaluation. The baseline evaluation, the objective of this evaluation is to get information, especially from the quantitative data, to setting the benchmark, that is setting the base value. Okay. Then setting targets. If you don't use your baseline data to set your targets, then you will be in trouble in midterm and in inline. I will show later this later part of this presentation what's actually problem if you don't use your baseline data for setting your targets. Okay. So now if you when the TOC log frame activities, those are actually developed during the project proposal development phase, right? So when you have the baseline, so then you may need the baseline data. Based on the baseline information, you may need to refine your TOC or log frame. And you have to submit to the donor that, hey, during the proposal phase, we thought that this blah, blah, but now the baseline information is saying us to revise this. The donor will accept it. Revise the resource allocation. So during the project proposal, maybe the resources are allocated in certain activities, but when you have the baseline, you understand that these activities or this indicator does not need more emphasis because it's already in good shape. So then that resources need to be reallocated to somewhere else whereas actually new, you have to add more activities to achieve your indicator or targets. So then you can revise your resources. Resources means here the human resources or the financial resources. Develop detailed implementation plan. Sometimes in my experience in many projects, sometimes the baseline after the baseline study, that is the part of MEL. Program people does not care about that. They make their development detailed implement plan based on their concept, based on their choice, everything. They don't use the baseline. So then in the long run, during the end line or midterm, you will be in trouble. You will see like many things it was not necessary to do, but the program people did. So now the baseline information needs to be like the MEL people and the program people, they need to think that this baseline study evaluation information is important for both sides, and they need to use it from the very beginning of the project for these things. Okay. Now let's see in the midterm evaluation. So midterm evaluation may have with the quantitative or may not. Sometimes now, most of the time, some of the donor they prefer not a quantitative component in a midterm evaluation. Rather, they want to use the annual monitoring data, MIS data to see the status at the midterm. Because a quantitative survey is very expensive. Now you have to think, if you conduct the same quantitative survey that you did in baseline, and if you do in midterm after 2 years, if it is a 5 years project, so then you'll not see like any big changes. So then investing money on collecting the quantitative data might not be useful. So in that case, it's reasonable that in midterm, you do not need like a big quantitative survey. Rather, you can use data, existing data from your annual monitoring or your MIS data that you can use to make some conclusion from the quantitative data. But midterm evaluation is mostly a qualitative evaluation, and in that case, what usually look at in midterm. First one is service quality assessment. The services, that means like services to the beneficiaries, say for like a growth monitoring session, a farmer's school session, a courtyard session, or like providing some direct services, medical services, or agricultural extension services. Whether the services are providing by the project staff to the or like community volunteers to the target beneficiaries, whether that's a quality services. Quality can be defined in many ways, like those who providing services, do they have enough knowledge, do they have training, are they giving enough time to the beneficiary to understand? So like in one project, I observed that they're doing a growth monitoring session, they're taking weight, they're talking to the mother about feeding practices, they're talking to the mother about nutritional status. So there are 100 kids at the growth monitoring session, and there are only 2 staff are providing this service. So if you compute that, per children need like 5 minutes to do, or mother and children 5 minutes to do this counseling and about other thing. So if it is 100 kids, so it becomes like 500 minutes. So then the project need to strategize like whether they are providing quality services or not. So during the midterm evaluation, the evaluator will see whether the project is providing a quality services to the beneficiaries. Okay. So now, what working and what not working in the midterm, the evaluator actually look at which activities is working well, which activities is not working well, or a component, a project component, and the activities they are providing, that's actually not the correct way or not sufficient. So in that case, it's a big thing during the midterm evaluation or midterm review to see that what activities are working, what activities are not working. Okay. Status of log frame indicators. Okay. So now some of the indicators they measured annually. That is mostly output and outcome indicators. So the midterm evaluators will see what are the like progress on the output indicators, and also like some of the outcome indicators that can be achieved in shorter term period. Revisit your targets. Okay, so if midterm evaluators can find that some of the indicators, based on the sum of the indicators performance status, if the evaluator finds that in the long run, the way the motion is the project is going on for this particular indicator, they will not be able to achieve it at the end line. So the targets they have, I'll show one example in my presentation. So why you don't revise your target, or why you don't if you don't use your baseline for target setting, then what would be your problem? So during the midterm, the donor will give you some opportunity to revisit your targets and to revise it and to submit it to them. Review TOC. So if some activities is not working, if some activities is not like going to contribute your TOC to achieve the intended goal and objectives, then actually then the TOC need to be also reviewed. And if you make any changes or if you make any revision, then you have to submit it to the donor. Hey, we had this, and then we thought based on our midterm evaluation, this activities is not working, so this should be changed to this based on the midterm evaluation recommendation, and let's see what's happened. So then you can review your TOC. Human and financial resources analysis. So during the midterm evaluators also do this human. Human means like the staff allocation. Okay, in some places like they need 2 staff is enough, but according to the main proposal, there are 5 staff is there. But in some component, another component, they need 5 people, but they have 3 people there. So then the human reallocation can be from there to here to make a balance so that the project can perform their activities in the correct way. So that's why the midterm evaluation also look at the human and also financial resources. So where the financial resources is using, if the financial resources are using in the correct way, their burn rate, whether they will be able to finish their money or funding before ending the project. So these are the things human and financial resource analysis and evaluator do during the midterm. And of course, based on this evaluation, they make some of the recommendations. Inline. Inline basically nothing to do to change your project TOC, nothing to do with your targets. Now inline is the place where actually the evaluators try to look at or examine the extent of changes and achievements. Okay, So say for one example, one indicator, so where it was in baseline and where it is in end line, and what's the changes, how much changes they make it, and whether their target was there, whether the target achieved or the target not achieved. Impact analysis in the end line, this is very important, or final evaluation, you need to do the impact analysis. So implementing this project is finally actually what impacted. Okay? So that's very important to do the impact analysis. Some of the project during the end line, they do only the quantitative survey and they compare with the indicators from baseline to end line, that's it. But if you don't do an impact analysis, so which set of activities actually contributed to like what well-being of the beneficiaries. If you don't do this impact analysis, then it will not be a good learning, and then you cannot replicate to other projects. So not only at the final evaluation or inline, not only the indicator how much is changed, whether it's achieved the targets or not like that, you will have to also do the impact analysis. So the MEL people or the project or M&E professional, they need to keep in mind that the inline, there should be a component of the impact analysis. Okay. Cost of benefit analysis. Okay, how much you invested and how much is actually benefited come from there. So this is now earlier days. Actually, the UK based funding like DFID or European funding, they always ask you to do the cost of benefit analysis. But now also like the USAID funding and other fundings, they also include this cost of benefit analysis during the inline or final. And this is a good thing, right? How much you have invested and how much you got the return. So cost and benefit analysis is important during the final evaluation. Documentation of lesson learning. Okay, whatever you learn from the project in the final evaluation, then it should be a proper documentation. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit at my end of this presentation what's other documentation you can do. And finally, the recommendation for future programming. The final evaluation, the evaluators always make some plausible recommendation that can be replicated to other projects, and this is very, very important. Although recommendation is very important during the midterm, based on the recommendation, it might be a big changes of project activities. It might be, it might changes the budget allocation, many things. Recommendation is very important in midterm, but also inline, recommendation is very important so that this project can findings or lesson learning can be used for used in an effective way in the future or other projects. So my next slide is evaluation. I will talk about a little bit on the evaluation methodology. What are the methods we use in the evaluation? So let's see what are the method we actually use. So as I told you, like right now the evaluation, they use quantitative and they use qualitative. Okay. So these are the two components are now very common in any of the evaluation, baseline, midterm, or final evaluation. And as I told you, in midterm, it might not have quantitative, but might have quantitative from different project internal sources. So now it's a quantitative method and then qualitative methods. And what we do in the quantitative methods. So the quantitative methods, we do definitely in the baseline and inline, definitely we do a sample survey. And that's the best way to collect data. Because if the project is very big project, so you don't have any way to do the without a sample survey. The quantitative also use MIS data, as I told you, during midterm, it can be used MIS data. Monitoring data, it can be annual monitoring data. Annual monitoring can also be survey data or like from the all beneficiary data and secondary data. Okay. Quantitative information sometimes also use secondary data. Okay. Now, what are the qualitative methods? You know, everybody know the qualitative methods. They apply FZD, KII, PRA, direct observation. Okay, so any kind of evaluation, direct observation is very important. Okay. This FZD, KII, or PRA can be done by some data collectors, trained data collectors, but direct observation is important. Direct observation is important by the evaluator, because if the evaluator don't observe what's going on in the field, so only based on this FZD, KII, or PRA, only based on this, they cannot make like a big decision. So then, or a good recommendation. So then the evaluators needs to do direct observation. Okay. And also documents review. Okay. Documents review is also important, because an evaluator, if they don't do the documents review properly, so then it will the evaluation results may come with some I think it's unusual findings. So documents review can be like the first thing for an evaluator needs to review the project documents, their TOC, their log frame, their different reports, and also like secondary reports. So they need to actually conceptualize before going to start any evaluation. So these last two are very important for qualitative part. So now when the quantitative and qualitative information is done, an evaluator, they have this information available. Now they do the analysis, and they do the triangulation between the quantitative and qualitative. So triangulation is very important. That means if you find something in quantitative, then the qualitative can tell why it's happened, what happened, what actually the problems. So that can actually tells the qualitative part. So the quantitative and qualitative should be synchronized before going to start any evaluation at the planning phase. That should be synchronized. Sometimes the quantitative study or quantitative survey done before the qualitative, so that the quantitative findings, the qualitative evaluation, they can see, and they can emphasize what are the things need to observe, or what are the needs to talk to the people to find this information to supplement the quantitative information. So triangulation is very important, but that should be systematic. So sometimes like qualitative evaluation done before the quantitative, so then the qualitative information might not be meaningful for making any evaluation recommendation or decision. So then I would prefer first do the quantitative, and then based on the quantitative preliminary findings, then make a strategy for the qualitative and do your qualitative evaluation, and then triangulate quantitative and qualitative, and then you will get some better information, and you will be able to make some better recommendation that's will be really very useful for the project people. So now when the triangulation is done, so now you are evaluating a project. So an evaluator is evaluating a project. So it doesn't mean that they evaluate, they're making a nice report and they submit it, that's done. No. When you do the triangulation, you must have to do something is called ground truthing. Ground truthing means like you will have to share each of the information to the project implementers, to the MEL people, if you are an evaluator. So you'll have to share this, each of the things. Hey, I found this in quantitative, I found this in qualitative. So these two information, when I combine, it comes to a conclusion for your project like this. So then the project people may tell you, this is not actually totally correct, partially correct, but these things is something different what you are talking. So through this discussion, an evaluator can find the good information, authentic information, impartial information, and actually the information is useful for the project. So an evaluator needs to make sure that the triangulation is there and a ground truthing is there. Then you will get a good evaluation. And also the MEL people also need to be careful on that, and they need to. This is why this presentation is. The MEL people will manage the evaluation. Evaluator will do the evaluation. So the responsibility of the MEL people to make sure that the evaluation is doing in right way, so that they can be benefited from the result. So this basically in very I'm actually trying to show you very simplest way the methodology. So this is the methodology, basic methodology that an evaluator apply to do an evaluation. And as well as the MEL people, they need to confirm that the evaluation process or methodology is applying that's in correct way. Okay. So now, as I told you, like qualitative evaluation, there is no much like methodology talking about methodology, but the quantitative, you need to make sure that the qualitative design, the quantitative survey design are robust and correct, that can make you and proper and appropriate, that can make you that can give you the authentic and practical information and correct information from where you can make your decisions. Okay. So now this is very problematic. Like many projects, they don't even think about it. Like quantitative survey at the beginning of the project, at the baseline needs to be that much robust or something like that. So many projects I work. One of the projects currently I'm working is in 5 countries around the world, in Latin America, Africa countries. So when they did the baseline, it's a 5 years project. When they did the baseline, so they did not use a robust quantitative study design, or they did not think about what they will do in the end line. They just did some basic quantitative survey. That was not an appropriate survey. So then, when we were involved at the midterm or at the end line of that project, then we found that the baseline information is problematic and cannot be compared with the midterm or end line. So like apple to apple can be compared, apple to orange if you compare. So there should be wrong conclusion. So now this is very important. From your baseline, you need to confirm that your quantitative survey design is robust and also like that is appropriate, and that can give you quality data to do the impact analysis at the end line. So now let's talk about some of the terminology that is using in quantitative survey methods. One is quasi-experimental design. And this quasi-experimental design is to estimate causal impact of an intervention. Causal impact means if you do, if you say, for example, if you are doing like health and nutrition activities. So now, if you do this, then what will be the effect? What will be the impact? And these are the activities behind this. Whether these are the activities is contributed to that impact or not, contributed to the intervention or not. So then quasi-experimental design is estimate causal impact of an intervention without, that is important, without randomization or without a control group. So it's actually done only for the project beneficiaries. And this study applied in treatment condition. Treatment condition means like in the project population and project areas. Sometimes people add a control group in quasi-experimental design. Okay? So they added a control group, and they do it, although it should be done at the treatment condition, but they do in their project people, and they compare over the period of time. So, but randomization. Randomization is not actually done for these quasi-experimental design. So now the next one is cross-sectional study or prevalence study. Okay, this study is used for point estimation or prevalence. Okay, so now we have a big problem actually. What should be used the when should be used the quasi-experimental? When should we use the cross-sectional study or prevalence study? So the MEL people need to know and need to make sure that whether the quantitative methods that are using that are correct. Okay. Otherwise, the project will suffer. At the end of the project, you did many things, but it would be hard for an evaluator to show the actual impact or effect of the project. So cross-sectional study or prevalence study is basically used for point prevalence. So say, for example, you want to do like what's now, and after a training, then you want to see actually what achieved. So it's a point prevalence. So before and after, pre and post test. Usually this type of study is cross-sectional or prevalence study is done monitoring surveys. So for example, many projects now are doing beneficiary-based sample survey, annual monitoring survey. They're called in many names PABSS, PABSS, some people call BBS. So many names are there, beneficiary-based annual monitoring survey. So I would say like the simple annual monitoring survey that is done for the beneficiaries as a point estimate or point prevalence. It means like the year you are doing, when you are doing this survey, what's the status at that time? And then you compare with the target value for that particular time frame. Okay. So this type of cross-sectional study or prevalence study is used for point estimate or prevalence, and this is useful for monitoring survey, surveillance, any rapid assessment or any needs assessment. You can use this cross-sectional or prevalence study. Okay. Now, the last one is very important. Now, the randomized control trials, this study design is now using widely for impact analysis. Earlier days, this randomized control trials is usually used by the medical professionals and like some agricultural research. In a smaller scale. Actually, randomized control trial is very effective in a smaller scale. But right now, many donors are using these randomized control trials. So especially the USAID funded organization, funded projects, they're now doing the randomized control trials. And these randomized control trials can be a panel design. Panel design means you starting in the baseline a cohort of people, then you continue to collect data in midterm from the same people, and at the end line you collect data from the same people, or like you can do like a shorter interval and collect data from the same people. So randomized control trial can be a panel design. But I will talk more on the randomized control trial in my next slide. So what does mean a randomized control trial? A randomized control trial meaning you are separating the control, and you are separating the control and the intervention people. You are separating the control and the intervention people from the very beginning of the project starts. Okay, so that is called actually randomized control trial. Okay, so now if in this circle, so like what actually the USAID funded project is now doing, the RCT. So in this circle, these small circles are maybe the clusters or villas. You know, those who work with the USAID project, you know, before the RFA, they declared the country strategy plan. In the country strategy plan, they identify which area is actually need this project, and they actually specify, okay, you can submit a proposal for this area. Okay, so for example, you got the project in a certain area. So this is the certain area. So now you don't know if you are using a randomized control trial. You don't know who should be your intervention area and what should be your control area. So in that case, the randomized control trial, what they do. So these are the clusters. Like in your project area, you're just going to start a project. In your project area, these are the clusters. These are the villages, whatever you call like the small administrative area. So these are the clusters, and then you do the researchers do some propensity score matching. What is the propensity score matching? Propensity score matching, they use some basic characteristics. Say, for example, the family size, the income, the livelihood strategies, there are certain common things, the household like assets. There are some common things, education level, nutritional status level, crop productivity level. So there are some characteristics, common characteristics. Okay, so based on that characteristics, they do some propensity score matching, and if they find like this cluster and this cluster have the same propensity, then they count them in one umbrella. Okay. So for example, using that procedure, so these are the 1, 2, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. These are the 6 cluster. Those were selected as those propensity was the same, and those were selected. Okay, these are the cluster, or these are the villages we're going to where we have this. We found that they have the same propensity, and that matches with the project selection criteria, project geographic area selection criteria. So then you identify those. Now, when you identify those, then separate it out, okay? And you numbered it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you numbered it. So now you make like 50-50, equal 50-50 using a randomized process, randomized assignment process. So a random draw. So here 6 cluster is there. So 3 cluster you choose for the intervention and 3 cluster you choose for the control, but that's not arbitrary. That should be randomly selected. So when you select here, when you do the randomization, so here maybe up using the random trials, using the random sampling, you got for the intervention like 1, 6, 3, and you got the clusters for others like 5, 2, 4. So now we decided that, okay, the project will work in these 3 communities, and these communities will be our control communities. So then the baseline they do in this community, and they consider this as a treatment community, and they do also baseline in this community, they call it as a control community. So over the period of time, the project will provide supports to these control support treatment community, and then this control community they will not provide any intervention. Okay, so when at the end line, they will also collect data from these communities and these communities, and then they will compare, because of this intervention, how is actually better than this area. Okay, so this is the randomization process in RCT that they use in the larger project. But this randomized control trials, when it used in the medical science, so they used individual levels. Say, for example, a person, some of the people, they are diabetic patient, and they are identified diabetic in the same time, and their age are almost same, and then maybe a researcher take like 100 diabetic patient with the similar characteristics, and they separate it in 50 people in one and 50 people in another. So 50 people they provide some medication, and 50 people they don't provide some medication. But now at some point, and they follow up and they see like whether the medication is effective or not. So usually they did randomization RCT in that way, but right now the development project, peak project, they start doing this randomization process. But like if your beneficiary size is 100,000, so then it's very hard to do the randomization at the RCT at the individual level. So that's why this big project, they start doing randomization RCT by cluster, by communities. Okay, so from the very beginning, they identify the communities with the same propensity based on some criteria, and then they separate out in different groups. One is control, and other is intervention. Okay. So now let's go to our next slide. I will show in this slide. I will show like from your quantitative study, you collected data. So now how you will measure your impact at the end line. I will show you some of the methods that can be used for impact analysis. Not too much, but very simple technique that usually used in many projects. And you also know, and I'm sure you heard about it, and you know some of you already practice it. So say for example, this is a line. Okay, so this is starting at baseline. This is the starting point, and this is the project life, like baseline, midterm, then inline. So throughout the project life. And this is the status, maybe some of specific indicators. Okay, let's see at the baseline. At the baseline, you did like RCT or whatever you did. So you have information, non-participant, and you have information participants. Okay, so let's see, like at the baseline, the participants of certain indicator was here, and non-participant was here, the baseline. So if you do the difference is, if it is A, the difference will be T minus C. So beneficiary to non-beneficiary difference at the baseline is T minus C. So now over the period of time, so during the midterm, if you look at the midterm, you might not expect a big changes of the certain indicators. Okay, in the midterm, it's usually if you are doing a quantitative, then it will be very small changes. You can expect very small changes. So in midterm, this is totally hypothetical. Okay, this is not from any data. So participants, they start from here and they are at the midterm here. Non-participant, they are here. They also increased a little bit, but they are also here in the midterm. So we are not going to measure actually, or as I explained in my earlier slides, that midterm usually doesn't have like any quantitative component that used in the baseline. So that's why you may not be able to do that, but you can see here the assumption is the midterm is here. Now at the end line, the project participant is here, and project non-participant is here. Okay, so if we draw a line from here to here, then the difference at the end line is T minus C. This is B. Okay, so now if you do the difference from A to B, that is B minus A, that is D, that is actually called difference in difference. But remember, this is simply the arithmetic process to show you, to make you some idea what is actually difference in difference. Sometimes people call it double difference. Okay? So the difference is difference, what was in the baseline, the difference, and then what was in the end line difference, and the difference from baseline to, again, the difference of the difference at the baseline to end line. But this difference in difference, you can do it like in the simplest way, the arithmetic mean, you can, arithmetic difference, you can compute, but that is not actually done for impact analysis. In the impact analysis, it's also counted like what are the activities or what are the factors, what are the intervention is used for this indicator that used as a factor in doing some regression analysis, whether this factor is effective for this increasing trend or this improved status, that actually counted during the difference in difference analysis. So if you want to really do an impact analysis and for the DID, then you must need to do regression analysis, and in that regression analysis, you need to see what are the intervention was there and the factors was there, and the difference in difference, how is much influenced by those factors. And when you will do that, that can be your impact analysis. Okay. So the difference is simplest way, this is this, but when you'll do the impact analysis, remember, you'll have to consider also the factors that is actually contributing to this difference. And that you can do using a regression analysis. Okay, the other thing is, two other thing is usually used for another impact analysis. So whether the intervention, that means the treatment, is effect on the treatment group or the control group. It's called average treatment effect. When it is average treatment effect, that is those who actually practicing something or those who actually doing something, those who get intervention something. So that is the average of those who get it, those who don't get it, but they practice it. That is called average treatment effect. So average treatment effect, they includes both project, treatment, and control. But say, for example, agricultural practices, so use compost. So compost use can be a control group farmer can also be use a compost. And also a treatment farmer, they can also use a compost. But the things is that we see that the average number of people they're using and in treatment group and in average number they're using in control group, then we see that whether there is a difference between them. That actually counted average treatment effect. And average treatment effect on the treated. On the treated means only those who is actually practice or those who get that treatment. So only those difference if we see, then we call average treatment effect on the treated. Let me show you an example. Okay? That would be useful for you. This is totally example. Don't confuse this cell. This is a 2x2 contingency table, and there were control group. There were 100 sample. Participants group. There were 100 sample. Okay. So now here is treated. Treated means treatment. Treatment means intervention. Okay. So whether the intervention received or not. So maybe those who received, say for example, this is the production of maybe maize, okay, average production of maize. So those who received intervention, those who in the control group, those who did not receive intervention, and they have the maize production was 35.5 kilogram. Okay, in the control group, those who received treatment means like some of the intervention, even if the control group, they might get it from some other sources. Okay, so those who received the treatment and their average maize production was 55.5. Now the participant group, those who did not receive the treatment, so then their production was 40 kg average, and then the participant, those who received treatment, their production was 60.5 kg. So these are the average in a contingency table we have. Now, let's see what is ATE and what is ATT. Now the ATE, as I told you, that counted those who received, those who don't receive, but their average effectivity, both control and participants group. So here, first we take average from this and this. If we take average, then it comes to 45.5. Then participant, we get the average from this and this. Then we got the average is 50.3. Now the difference between these two, the average difference is called ATE, average treatment effect. Average treatment effect, that is called ATE, and that is actually we do control participants and also like whether they're treated or not treated. Okay. So this is used like here, if it is the difference is 4.8, if the difference is statistically significant, then we may conclude that the project participants have significant effect on the intervention. Okay. Now the next one is, if you look at that, the difference between ATE and ATT. ATT is treatment effect on the treated. Only those got the treatment in control and in the participants. So here, this column, the non-participant, they did not receive any treatment. Participant, they did not receive any treatment. But here, control group, those who receive treatment, their average is this. Participant group, those who receive treatment, their average is this. Now, ATT is computed actually based on this, okay, simple difference from 60 to 55, then it's come to ATT. So ATT is actually measure those who got treatment in the control group and those who got treatment in the participant group. If the difference is statistically significant, then you can more narrow down that even if the control group, they received the treatment, but the participant group received the same treatment, but the participant group received other intervention activities. So that's why their production is higher than the control group. And this difference is, if it is significant statistically, then you can say project intervention has an impact. And we actually do this ATE and ATT, these two things, two statistics to do the impact analysis using the propensity score matching. Okay. So now other impact analysis. Okay, we do regression analysis, ordinary least square estimates. That is sometimes called linear regression. We do this regression analysis like this. This is the separate indicator is household food insecurity. Then what are the factors is actually influenced on that indicator? So then what factors influence positively, what factors influence negatively? Then we can use linear regression or ordinary least square estimates. So some of the evaluators, when they do impact analysis, cause and effect analysis, then they use this procedure. But linear regression or ordinary least square estimate, in any software like SPSS or any software available right now, if you just put the variable, then you can get it. But you need to think about it, whether this procedure is appropriate for this or not. Okay, that's you need to look at. Now, quantile regression. Okay, so this regression is actually ordinary least square estimates, linear regression, but this quantile use this ordinary linear regression use the mean value, but this quantile regression use the median value. Say for example, the income, when you income your income is your indicator, and you want to see which are the factors is actually positively affect on household increased income. So then if you use mean value, then it will not give you your correct estimates. It will not give you the correct result to make any conclusion. So then you'll have to use the quantile, and quantile use median value, not mean. Why median? For income. So always like any economic data, any income data, or like any like how production data. So those always have like extreme value. Say for example, income, somebody is earning 10,000, somebody is earning 1,000. So 1,000 versus 10,000 is a very big difference. And these two are actually extreme values. And when you compute the simple average or simple mean, so then it will be highly influenced by these two extreme values. Okay. So that's why we use median to make a correct estimates, because people's income will not be like similar in a community. It must have like the extreme values and outliers. So in that case, actually, we use quantile regression. That is basically linear regression, but we use quantile regression. So why I'm actually, then the other one is logistic regression. Logistics regression, like if your indicator value comes with 0 and 1 value, say for example, whether the household is food consumption score is below the line, acceptance line, or like above the acceptance. So in that case, your outcome is 0 and 1 of that indicator. So if it is a dichotomous 0 and 1, then it's better to use logistics regression, not a linear regression. Then finally is propensity score matching. So as I told you, like if you did your baseline only for the project beneficiaries, you don't have any control. Now at the end line, you also did that for the project beneficiaries. Now you would like to do some impact analysis. Now you don't have any control, then you cannot compare and do the impact analysis. And what you can do a propensity score matching based on some common criteria. You can fix some common criteria, and based on that common criteria, you can do propensity score matching. Those have propensity is above above 5.5, then you can consider them in one group, and those have lower, then you can consider in another group. So then you can separate in your data in two different groups, although they are you use the same characteristics for separating out these two, which is below and which is the high. So if you can separate out this, then you can even compare that. Although these people have this the same thing, but they have this difference. Okay. So sometimes like we do the evaluators or researchers, if you don't have a control group, then we separate out the data using the propensity score matching. And then we do some comparative analysis, and we come to a conclusion on the impacts or like outcome of this project. So I tried to show you the simplest way, some of the impact analysis, some of the evaluation methods. I'm not going to go in very detail like that. That needs to be maybe different sessions for different things. But just to give you some idea, so that when an evaluator or researchers will do some impact analysis, so that you can understand is actually whether they are doing in right way or wrong way. Okay, if they are doing something wrong way, then you can tell them, okay, hey, you are doing this, but this is not correct. This is wrong. So you need to make it in that way, or why don't you do this in that way? So that the MEL people can have some say to the evaluator. So only evaluator does not get the opportunity to make conclusion and everything based on his or her own opinion or own findings. So now I think I already took a lot of times. Okay, do I have time, Alamgir bhai, to continue?
Continue. Please continue.
Okay, thank you. Steps of an evaluation process. So as I told you, at the beginning, the evaluation process should be systematic. Okay? If you don't go in systematic way, then you don't get a good evaluation findings. Okay, let's see. At the inception phase, that means when you start strategizing or when you start preparing for the evaluation, then what you will have to do. That is the inception phase. Set study objectives. First, this is the first thing actually. What you want to do, what you want to look at, and what you want to learn from this study. So first, actually set your objective, and then secure budget. I intentionally put it in the next step. Okay, secure budget. If you don't have enough budget, then an evaluator cannot make a good evaluation. Okay, so that's very important thing at the very beginning. Hey, I have $50,000 to do this study. Then the evaluator will think, or researcher will think within this 50,000. Okay, so for example, if you give me $1 to make a samosa, then like a snack, then I make then I put some potato inside. Then I can put I cannot put anything else in there because I have only $1. Right? So now, if you give me $5 to make one samosa or one snack, then I can put it in some potato. I can put something wrong going on. Okay, so I can put some potato. I can put some chicken inside. I can put some other elements in there. So it would be more better than the $1 samosa. So I would say, or $1 burger. So I would say, like, whatever you want, then a quality evaluation, of course, need enough budget. So the MEL people or the project people, they need to secure budget at the very beginning to do a good evaluation. Okay. Prepare concept note. Okay. Based on your objectives, based on your project, prepare a concept note that can clearly specify what you want, which are the things you want to look at, what you want to learn, blah, blah things. If your concept note is not like a good concept notes, then, or like a complete concept notes, then it's a problem for the evaluator. And evaluator can do many things with his or her own choice. Identify indicators. Okay, so what are the indicators you want to look at? So that should be at the very beginning during the baseline. Okay, if you miss any indicator in baseline, then in end line you will not have anything to compare. Okay, so identify indicator, gather secondary data, and then identify a study team. This is important. You have to identify a study team that's capable and experienced and can give you a very good evaluation results. Okay. I don't know what's going on here. Okay. So then the design phase. So it's very important when we do the inception, you set your study, secure your budget, prepare your concept note, identify indicators, gather secondary data, and identify team. When you are done, then that should have an inception report, okay, including all of the things that is done in the inception phase, okay. So now when you are done with the inception phase, now it comes to the design phase, okay. In the design phase, the most important thing, if you have a quantitative component, you must have to have a specific sampling frame. Sampling frame means the population where you will draw your sample. So now this is important. This is very important because of budgetary implication. If your sampling frame, you need to prepare to conducting a listing exercise, then it will be cost will be very high. If you are doing from your beneficiary, then you can get it from your MIS database. If you want to do apply a random walk procedure, then there are some limitations when you are going to do the impact analysis, and there are some limitations during the data analysis because you will have to adjust that if you are using that. So Now, sampling frame is important. What should be your sampling frame? How you are going to do that? And your sampling frame, based on your sampling frame, then your budget need to be according to that. So because to construct a sampling frame, if you do the listing exercise or census, then you must have to have enough budget to do that. Decide on sampling design. This is very important. Sampling design is very important. I think you had a session this year in January on sampling design and sample size estimation that was done by Rofik Bhai. I think you can go back and see that. So then actually different sampling design and sample size is very important. Your budget. If your sample size is too high, then your budget should be high. If your sampling design is a multi-stage sampling design, then your budget need more. So there are many things is actually depending on your sampling design. So you have to decide how much you have, how much you can, and how much you can get it, and what quality of your study. So that should be a good balance during deciding the sampling design. And sample size estimation, this is very important in case of quantitative survey. Okay, if you do a point estimates, then you have to use a procedure that is applicable for point estimates for point prevalence. Sometimes, or most of the time, most of the places, people do a wrong thing when they design baseline, they use a point estimate or point prevalence. So if your innovation is to do a baseline and compare with endline to see certain amount of changes over the period of time, then you must need to apply a different approach of sample size estimation. So the sample size estimation, or if you use a randomized control trial, or if you use a panel design, so then you must have to use, if you use a panel design, it is different sample size estimation procedure. So now this is very important. And from my experience, people most of the time, they use the sample size estimation formula that used for the point estimation or prevalence, and the popular formula they use. But if it is a development project, if you want to do baseline, mid baseline, and end line, and compare and do the impact analysis, want to see the extent of changes, then you must need to use a appropriate sample size calculation procedure. Decide on qualitative sample. So now, as I told you earlier, that if you do your quantitative first and do your qualitative after the quantitative, so because in the long run you'll have to do the triangulation. So when you have the quantitative, what are the area you are going to collect the data? Which are the cluster you are going to collect the data? So you have already from the quantitative. So now qualitative samples, the evaluator prefer to collect qualitative information where the quantitative information is actually collected. So now they decide how many clusters they will cover, how many FZD they will cover, how many KII they will cover, and which area. Usually, if it is quantitative and qualitative together, then the qualitative evaluators, they go to the area where the quantitative data is. So now you have to decide what should be the qualitative sample. Develop topical outlines for the qualitative data collection, a clear, understandable topical outlines. What you need to discuss in FZD, what you need to discuss in AII, what you need to observe in the field, what activities. So a clear guidance that is called topical outlines that need to be developed for qualitative data collection. For quantitative tools, I think 1 or 2 months ago, there are some mobile-based quantitative data collection, then paper-based quantitative data collection. There are many ways, but now it's getting popular collecting data through mobile-based application. People use Kobo, people use ODK, people use CS Pro. Many apps are right now available. It's open sources sometimes. You'll have to pay for sometimes donor provided. So it's getting popular. I would suggest is right now the quantitative tools, since this is an era of mobile devices and internet connected everywhere. So why not use that? Because that is very useful to collect data, data consistency check at the back end and during the data collection and after the data collection. And during the data collection, you can check the quality remotely. And after the data collection, you can start data analysis within a short period of time. But paper-based data collection is a lot of time, lot of money, lot of things. So now develop the quantitative tools and think about it, whether you are go for a paper-based or like a mobile-based, whatever you do, but make sure that your quantitative tools is developed based on the definition of the indicators that you are using for this study. I know like many quantitative survey that people do, they are most likely to collect data. So like family information, their education information, their age information. Half of the module of this questionnaire is full of this blah blah information. But you need to actually decide that what extent you need those basic information. Make it shorten, but you make sure that your indicator that you are collecting, that definition, correct definition, and also like updated definition. Say, for example, some of the indicators, food consumption scores, is changing time to time, their guideline changing, household diet diversity, their guideline is changing time to time. So you have to, when you are preparing a quantitative tools, you have to make sure that you are using the updated guideline, you are using the updated definition. It's not like copy paste from some other questionnaire that was used in 20 years ago and now you're using, then it will be at the end of data collection, it will not be useful. So make sure that you are developing your quantitative tools based on the updated definition or your indicators, and only confined to the information that actually you need to collect for the objectives that you have set. Now, implementation phase, training and orientation is very important. I know like during the COVID-19 era, people do like distance training. I did many countries. We collect data through online. We interviewed people through online. So provided training online. But personally, I preferred like training should be interactive, in-person classroom training, and that's more effective. Since we don't have COVID-19, I know many people are in favor of distance training. That's cost-effective, less cost. But personally, as a researcher, MEP person or evaluator, I would prefer to be an interactive training session, and that should be a classroom training session. Data collection field work, and then data monitoring and coding. So this is very important. If you data quality checking and monitoring, if you do on the halfway or the end of the data collection phase, then it does not be useful. First 1 or 2 days of data collection is very crucial. So those who is the quantitative leads need to check the data quality first day and second day. And if you need like to stop data collection for 1 day to make them reorient them, do that, and then collect the data. After 1 or 2 days, it becomes like usual to them, and you can ensure a quality data. So monitoring is very important. Data analysis plan. So before going to start a data analysis, you must have a data analysis plan and data tabulation plan, how you want to present the data, and how you would like to you need to actually analyze the data. So by definition, whose variable, what you are going to do. So a complete analysis plan and a tabulation plan before going to start the data collection, data analysis. Then you do the data analysis, then you do the triangulation with the qualitative, and then you do the ground truthing, and then your evaluation is complete. Now, when your evaluation is complete, then you have a learning phase. In the learning phase, from the evaluation findings, it can be adaptive management decisions, because based on the findings, you can make a decisions, resource allocation, you can make a decisions to add any new intervention or activities. You can make a decisions. That's actually called adaptive management decision. Based on the evaluation, the project is adapting and then making decisions based on that. That should be your learning phase. Planning for future programming also, of course, like the evaluation findings need to be disseminated to the people, and also like used for the future programming. That's very important. So if you use these findings for the future programming, so future programming programs will be even more even more effective and more better. And finally, documentation. Documentation is very important thing, how you are documenting. So you are making a nice report. You can make some video content. You can share within online. You can internet. You can publish some papers. So it's called actually document. So proper documentation is very important for an evaluation report.
Tawfiq bhai,
Yes.
Would you finish by 10 minutes possible? Already on an half hour over.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Thank you. So these are the two slides I will use. From some practical data. So it's actual data. I'm not going to mention the project, but this is for actual data. So how we're going to use the baseline data, I will show you one example. If you look at this, graph, you'll see that children less than 6 months of age fed only breast milk in the last 24 hours. So here, this graph is showing that the children with less than 1 month, 79% are providing only breast milk. When it is 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, that's just going down, right? So the assumption is here that children fed only breast milk decreased from 79% to 12% before reaching 5th month of age. So this is a big problem if your indicator is exclusive breastfeeding, right? So what should be your target in that case? As I told you, baseline data needs to be used your target settings. It is 50%. So like at the 5th month, when you will go to the survey, those child age is 5 months. Are you going to set your target like 50%? They will feed only the breast milk, or like 80%? That was for the less than 1 month. So now we need to decide what are the activities, and what are the time frame you have to achieve this, and based on that you set your target. And now when you set your target based on this information, now do you need to refine your activities to achieve this indicator? So if so, then what additional resources do you need to do? Or if you need to do a formative research to do more on this to achieve this indicator. So there are two things. One is setting your target using the baseline data. That should be reasonable. And that target should be your time frame of the project and what are the activities you are providing. So that's based on that. And then if you change anything, so then what additional resources you need. And like if you need to do like further, if since this is a BCC activities related to, so then you might need some formative research to make a strategy how you can provide best services so that the exclusive breastfeeding or provide only breast milk in 24 hours that you can achieve your target. So now midterm data, I'm just going through one example. This is one of our recent project findings. And we actually use 8 domains here: relevance, coherence, effectiveness, efficiencies, impact, sustainability, collaborative learning and actions, and cross-cutting themes. So these are the 8 domains we use to look at their project and to do the midterm evaluation. Here there are some findings and there are some recommendations here. Say for example, let me tell one thing. Say for example, here is coherence. Coherence is saying that limited collaboration with other actors. So the project is going with their own way. So they are not collaborating with the other actors or other people or other agencies there. So then it's a problem. Then they will not be able to achieve their target. So then midterm findings is saying that the project will think how they will mitigate this. So these are the 8 domains from a midterm evaluation. We collect data. So it's a systematic process. We went one by one, and we make some based on the findings. We make some recommendation, and the project is now preparing their action plan to implement this and to achieve their intended objectives. Now, you use your, I'm showing the inline data. So here, if you look at that, the food consumption score, this is a real data. If you see the the bar here, so in baseline it is 47.2%. Then they set their target 20 percentage point change. That comes to like 62.1%. Okay. So now, what happened? At the end line, they got 59%, and this is a significant change from baseline to end line. If you see double star, it means it's significant at 5% level of significant, and it did not make the target because although it's a significant change, but it did not make the achieve the target because the target was not realistic. So now you need to think what actually you can do, and based on that, your target needs to fix so that you can achieve. My second example here, look at this. This indicator, this indicator is 33% at baseline, and end line is 55%. And this changes is 3 star. It means like it's significant from baseline to end line, statistically significant, and it's a 1% level of significance. So it's a very highly significant, but your target was 50. Look at this, and it looks like 55 at the end line, so you achieved the target, but you cannot claim that. Why? Your end line 95% confidence interval is this, and if you see your target is within the 95% confidence interval. It means that if 55 is in your end line, then your upper limit can be this, your lower limit can be this. If your target falls under the confidence interval, then you cannot claim that you achieved the target. So now you need to think like your target should be realistic and based on your baseline findings. here, as I told you, like we do impact analysis, DID, propensity score matching, ATT, ATE. So now I told you in my previous, here is a household food insecurity access scale. And these are the factors that we think that is influenced household food insecurity. So then we try to see what are those is important to reduce household food insecurity. If you look at that, negative means it's good, positive. Negative means positive. Negative means this factor reduce the household food insecurity. So those are statistically significant factors. Now, if you look at here the DID, this DID is showing positive. It means that it's based that the baseline to end line, actually the food insecurity increased, and that increase is the beneficiary and non-beneficiary, they increase in the same way. So that's why, but the beneficiaries increased is higher than the treatment. So that's why it's positive coefficient. So DID does not actually showing any positive or significant. It means like there is no basic difference. Treatment and control, that means beneficiary and non-beneficiary, their household food insecurity increased, and both increased, but the control group, their insecurity increased more. But if you look at the propensity score matching, then you see here, then you see here the negative coefficient with statistically significant. So it means that although that the household food insecurity increased, but because of these factors, that can actually decrease the household food insecurity. So that's the influencing factors, and those factors, collecting factors effect collectively, it actually reduced the, so project intervention in somehow working here. So that's actually we tried to prove in the propensity score matching and using the average treatment effect and average treatment effect on the treatment. So time shortage, that's why this is my last slide. I already discussed about this and evaluation, lesson learning, reflection and dissemination. Use of lessons for betterment of future programming and prepare academic peer review papers. So you have a lot of data, but if you don't publish this in journal, then the other audience or wider audience, they can see your project findings. So I think if you have that opportunity to write a paper, even the many people, you can do. And documentation. I think documentation is very important every time I'm saying. And documentation, maybe a different session you can have how to do a proper documentation, a report and other things. Here are some references you can see on evaluation guidance. I think Alamgir Bhai will share with you the presentation link, and you will have the video content. So I think that's it from my side. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience. And then if you have any questions, if we have time, then we can discuss. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tawfiq Bhai. Actually, evolution is a big deal, big thing. So he tried a lot. So we have learned more. So it's time to participate. As our commitment, we will finish left 15 minutes. So raise your hand, and we will take some question from chat box and some question from hand raising. Please raise your hand. And first question, Tawfiq Bhai, from chat box: how we can compare this data with ATE and ATT? Tawfiq Bhai, first question from chat box.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Let me go back to my slide. Okay. Okay. So if you look at here, there are two interaction terms we use in this regression model. So here is actually the treatment control versus beneficiaries, and then here is time frame, the baseline to end line. So if we use this introduction term, baseline to end line, there's a time frame that actually compare the treatment and control over the period of baseline to end line. And the factors is here, you look at it is positive. That means both baseline, from baseline to end line, the food insecurity increased, and both for the here, the beneficiary and control, they have increased. Okay. So now when you are asking like how do you use the propensity score matching to compare with the baseline to end line? Okay. So in the propensity score matching, if you use your time frame, the variable time frame, that means your baseline is 0 and your end line is 1. If you use this time frame as an interaction term, then it will account the baseline to end line in ATT and ATE computation.
Okay, and another one from raising hand, Asnafi. Asnafi, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much, Tawfiq and Argomi. So my question here, how do the control group receive treatment? And also, how do the participant group do not receive treatment? If we are saying control, it's control, meaning that it will not be receiving any kind of intervention or support. And if we are saying treatment group, meaning that that group will be having any sort of intervention or activity, but the control group will not have that one. So what's the difference there? Thanks.
Thanks. That's very. I was expecting that question. Okay, so now often people say is that spillover effect. Okay, so now if you do a population-based survey, within your beneficiaries, so usually the USAID people they do the population-based, even if their project area they do the population-based survey for the baseline and the end line. So when you are doing the population-based survey, then even if the project participants, they might not be included in that intervention, because you know the purpose 1, purpose 2, purpose 3. There are different purposes. Maybe purpose 1 is for agricultural support. Okay, purpose 2 is not for agricultural support. So still they are beneficiaries, but they are not receiving the intervention or receiving any support on that, but they can get it from other people. So that's called actually spillover effect. We cannot control that spillover effect even in the control community. So like say for example an agricultural practice that is very popular. The project is started with the beneficiaries. So when the beneficiaries is learn about that and they get the better results, then even in the control area, some farmer may come, and also the project area, maybe like the other beneficiaries, not particularly for that, they can come and they can ask like how you're doing that. We want to learn from you. So then they might learn from it and they can apply for it. So that's why in this type of ATT and ATE, then also count the control and also count the participants and separate it out whether they receive it or whether they don't receive it, whether they're treated or whether they're not treated. So it's basically measured the spillover effect also. Okay, in that case, is actually possible without getting a treatment. A control can also get that support like treatment. So in the ATT and ATE, that's why I use this one. Okay.
Thank you, Tuluk bhai. Another question from chat box. Randomized control trial is same like difference in difference?
That's a good question. Yes, the difference in difference is a process of impact analysis. Randomization process is a process of like randomize your sampling units in two different groups. One is control and one is treatment at the beginning of starting the intervention. So randomized control trial is the beginning part of like starting where you are going to provide your services, where you are not going to provide your services. Where you are going to provide services, that is the treatment group, and another where you are not going to provide services, that is your control groups. This is the separation during the randomization control trial process, but the DID is the later part. So yes, randomized control trial, you can do DID definitely, because here you have control, you have treatment, and also you are going to do baseline, midterm, and inline. So DID is a process of impact analysis, and RCT is a process of doing this sampling design. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another on from
Alamgir bhai.
yeah.
Yeah, I have taken some notes. Okay, there is a question.
Let me start one or two.
Yeah. Okay, just a word last one. How do we decide the number of qualitative sample during qualitative sample selection? How many KII we will do, or how many FZD, etc. This is a question from Ashish Dash. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. That's a good question. Actually, that is arbitrary. There is no systematic process, or there is no formula. You'll have to do that. So,
yes.
Say for example, when you did the quantitative, based on the quantitative findings, you understand that I need to talk to these people. I need to talk to this beneficiary. So then when you identify that, then you talk to these people, how many areas you need to visit, or like if you see like there are, say for in Bangladesh, some are Chor areas, some are Howrah areas, some are mainland area. So if you go only the Chor area, then you will not get you'll get skewed information. Then the same thing, you'll have to go Howrah area, you'll have to go mainland area. So in that case, actually, you'll have to decide arbitrarily based on your objectives, based on the qualitative findings that you would like to collect. So it's not like any, there is no specific formula or specific anything that you provide this information, then it will tell you like how many FZD or how many KI, not like that. You have to decide based on your quantitative findings or based on your objectives of the study.
Okay, another one from handwriting, Utshap, right?
Yes, right. So first of all, I'd like to thank you for this very insightful presentations. I have one question. So if a project has already conducted this baseline data and then inline data, and then at the end of the project wants to do the impact evaluation, and maybe you will you will prepare the terms of reference, including the evaluation questions, and you asked the evaluator to provide the design and methodology for the impact evaluation. So what could be the possible design for in this case?
Okay, that's a great question, and that's the problems with many projects because at the beginning, they might not have any plan on that, but at the end of the project, they thought that no, actually, I have the baseline data, I have the inline data. Now I want to do the impact analysis. So how we can do that? From one of my experience, let me just share with you. That's a long before, maybe in 2012 in Nigeria. They had a project, and they collected the data and baseline and inline. But when they're at the inline, they come to us and ask like do an impact analysis. So there was no way to do that, and there was no control group. So then what we did? So then finally we used the propensity score matching. And propensity score matching, and we separate out and with the same propensity to different groups, and then we did the analysis, and we found that the propensity score matching especially didn't do the ATT or ATE. We just using the propensity score matching, we separate the data set into two groups, and one have higher propensity, one group has lower propensity, and then we compare this group, what the status of this group, what the status of this group. Then we come to a conclusion. So that's another way. Now, answer to your question, when you ask an evaluator at the end of the project and asking the impact analysis, then the evaluator is actually examining the baseline and inline data, whether it's possible to do in any way the impact analysis or not. If from the quantitative data is not possible, if the project doesn't have like enough budget, then the last option and last resort is doing some qualitative, extensive qualitative analysis to do to at least show with the existing quantitative data what's the impact of the project. Otherwise, there is no way. But still, if you have the baseline and inline, the evaluator can examine and try to find ways. There are many ways to do the analysis without having a control, but that needs to be. But if anything is not there, if you don't have any further budget, so then the last resort is the qualitative, and that should be some intensive data collection process.
There will have a lot of questions. So sorry, we will take two questions, one from participant and another from chat box. So I want to get opportunity to Emmanuel, please. Emmanuel.
Okay. Yes. Thank you very much. Thanks so much for the presentation. Mine is more of like I wanted some kind of clarification. From the presentation, I understand it that for every evaluation to serve its purpose, it has to be impartial. And now one of the donor requirements is that an organization must have an MEL officer, a monitoring and evaluation officer in the organization. And then, so my question now is, if the organization is to have a MEL officer and at the same time to have impartial evaluation reports, how do we marry the two? In that case, do organizations need to hire MEL officers, or they should just outsource it to external consultants so as to give them that impartiality when it comes to the report?
Yeah, thank you for your question. This is actually once upon a time, USAID, they tried with the doing the midterm evaluation with their own organizational people, so that they selected. Say for example, in an organization in a country, they have a DFID funded project and they have a USAID funded project. So now the USAID funded project, they're going to do a midterm evaluation. and they engage people in the same organization from DFID project, those who are working and a specialist on that component. They took that people, they took from the partner organization, those who are working in other projects. So now they gather those people and they try to do a locally organized group to do their own midterm evaluation. So it did in 1 or 2 countries, and finally they leave it. It did not go well. So even if like you have your own resources, you have own people, but when you will do like from the same organization or like a collaborative organization, then although you don't want to do any biasness, but you want to do impartial, but what happened like is by nature it comes sometimes like biased information. So that's why we would suggest to hire, and you have to have like a a budget at the beginning, and third eye, like an independent consultant. But you need to make sure that that consultant have the knowledge and the practical experience on the evaluation that he is going to do that. But the MEL people, those who are involving in this process, they should be aware. They should be they should have enough knowledge on that, who you are engaging and how they are managing, and how they are progressing. So every step the MEL people should know. But in my practical experience, personally, I would suggest, like if it is like mid inline or baseline, to use a third party. That will give you some impartial information, and when you are doing the annual monitoring, or when you are doing the like other ongoing process, then you can use your own resources.
Thank you. We will take last question from chat box. Before that, I would like to offer Hindul Bhai. Would you say something, Hindul Bhai?
Thank you, Tawfiq Bhai. Very nice presentations. Yeah, I learned many things. These are the very insightful presentations, and I expecting from more from you. Actually, the how to actually the doing and running these sort of the analysis, like the you say the proficiency scoring and these things. So if you actually give you times to us to actually the technically briefing us, yeah, then we can actually learn more from you. Thank you.
Tawfiq Bhai, would you close your share? And last question.
Oh yeah.
Last
Okay,
question.
thank you so
Last
much.
question from chat box. What is the
Okay.
difference?
Thanks, Hindul Bhai.
What is the difference between inception document and concept note? From chat box.
Yeah, that's a good question. Concept notes is like one page things with like objectives of the study. That's usually goes with your TOR or scope of work. But inception report includes more details about talking about the objectives, talking about the process, talking about the planning, talking about the researchers, or talking about the evaluators. So you can inception report you can consider as a protocol, a study protocol, but the concept notes can be like 1 or 2 pages to give an idea to the evaluators when you would like to hire. So these are the difference concept notes and inception report.
Thank you all of you. Please, last word, Tawfiq Bhai, from your side.
No, thank you so much. Thank you, and I see like people from different different points from the world, and glad to be meet with you. And within this short period of time, like 1 hour or 45 minutes, evaluation is a very big thing. Cannot cover like within 1 hour. Hope you understand my presentation. I tried to make it concise from my practical experience. You might not see something like a standard guideline followed or manual followed. So it's just from my practical experience. I'd be happy to be in touch and learn from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tawfiq Bhai, for your nice presentation. And our next webinar will be held on 13 January. That will be scheduled. So I hope all of you will present there. So good day, good night today. Okay, Allah Hafiz.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye bye.
Thank you, Tawfiq.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you. Bye-bye.
It was amazing.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay, bye bye.
A very good presentation.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Sorry, if the question raised in the chat box could be replied, even if it is remotely, it would be good. Thank you, because some people tried to, but their response would not be.
Okay, we will try. All the question I will incorporate and send to facilitator, and then I will next webinar I will try. Walk to